أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين منتجبين المنتخبين المظلومين الغرر الميامين سيما بقية الله في الأراضين وهجته للخلائق أجمعين سيدنا وإمام زماننا وصاحب نعمتنا وولي أمرنا مهدي هذه الأمة وطووس أهل الجنة الحجة ابن الحسن العسكري فداه وأرواح العالمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, in today's lecture or today's topic or today's video, I will be discussing the concept known as Fadak, the land of Fadak, the disputes around Fadak, and what is the Sunni Shia clash or the Sunni Shia difference of opinion when it comes to Fadak. Inshallah, we'll be using Sunni sources as well as Shia sources. We'll be analyzing it from different various angles, different argument points that people bring forward. And then inshallah, for those who don't know about Fadak, this is going to be a good video because we're going to start off with the history of Fadak. What was the land? How big was the land? What was the income of the land? What happened with the land? How was it given to the Prophet? Did the Prophet fight a war again now? Was it gifted to him? And then what did the Prophet do with that land? Did he gift it to anybody in his lifetime, or did the Prophet leave it for inheritance after the passing away of the Prophet? What happened to that land? The people who were in power, did they usurp the land, or were they right in taking the land? The daughter of the Prophet comes forward with a claim where she says that this land is mine. What were her arguments used? What was the counter arguments used by the government at the time? What was her response to the counter arguments? What evidences did she use from the Quran and the hadiths of the Prophet? What evidences did they use, if any, from the Quran? And what was the end conclusion? So there's various videos about Fadak on YouTube. We've got them from a Shia perspective, we've got them from a Sunni perspective, we've got them in English, we've got them in Pakistani, Urdu, English languages, Arabic as well. So inshallah, today is a response to those who speak about Fadak in the negative way, and it's a response to those who claim that obviously who have one opinion on Fadak. So obviously I've got all my references and everything ready, and inshallah, as we're progressing through the video, those references that I bring up, or those book numbers, page numbers, hadith numbers, volume numbers, chapter numbers, authors, publications, and all the references that I mention, inshallah, will be appearing on the screen, either to my right or to my left. It depends on the editor's preference. But we will be showing you the front scan of the book. We'll show you the inside of the book, and we'll show you that volume, that chapter, that page number, and zoom in on the Arabic of that specific text that I am quoting whilst bringing forward my argument. So let's start off with what is Fadak. So Fadak is a land. Now, the first misconception that we get when it comes to with regards to Fadak is some people come forward with the opinion that it was a small piece of land, or they come forward with the opinion that it was just a land that had, let's say, 2 or 3 trees in there, palm trees, or just 2 or 3 little things in there. But no, we start off from the very onset by saying Fadak was not a small land. It was not something that consisted of a few trees. Okay, so we're going to start off by looking at, for example, we have the Tarikh Khamis, volume 2, page 88. We also have other references book as well we're going to use, such as the esteemed work of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Sunan Abu Dawood, in his book, volume 3, page 144. And we're going to use, for example, Mu'ajim al-Buldan, for example, volume 14, page 238 as well. These 3 or 4 references are just going to talk about the landscape of Fadak. What did it constitute in terms of the land of Fadak? So we start off by looking at the first reference that I quoted, and it says that Fadak was a city which was situated 2 or 3 days of travel from Medina. There were wells of water and trees of dates in it. It was that same Fadak about which Fatima to Zahra said to Abu Bakr that my father gave me this land of Fadak as a present. So he gifted this land to me. To which Abu Bakr then said to her, I want you to produce some witnesses if you truly say that Fadak is your land. So that's the actual dispute. The daughter of the Prophet of Islam is saying that this land was hers. She was saying that her father gifted her this land in his lifetime. She was saying that she was in possession of it during her father's lifetime. And the government, namely Abu Bakr, who was the first Caliph after the Prophet, is claiming that this land was not hers, that this land was the land of the government, and that she had no right to this land. And this was the actual dispute of Fadak. So let's have a look firstly at what income was generated from the land of Fadak. Now from this income we can kind of gather the landscape of Fadak, or we can gather how big it actually was. So looking at the income of Fadak, we look in the authority work of the Ahl Sunnah, Sunan Abu Dawood, volume 3, page 144. It is written that Abu Dawood himself said that when Umar ibn Abdul Aziz became the Caliph of the Muslims, the income from the property of Fadak was 40,000 dinars. Now 40,000 dinars, even, looking at it from today's economical perspective, is quite a lot. Now imagine 1,400 years ago, a land that had the income revenue coming in at 40,000 dinars. You can kind of gather in your mind what type of landscape Fadak actually was. Now what happened with Fadak, for example? We see that the income of Fadak obviously was used for military purposes. We read again in an Ahl Sunnah esteemed work known as Insanul Ayun. In that book we see in volume 3, page 487 and page 488, in the chapter known as the death of the Prophet, it says that Umar was angry with Abu Bakr. And in his angry state, he said to Abu Bakr that if you give Fadak back to Fatima, notice that he's saying give back to Fatima. We'll come back upon that, but just remember these words, give Fadak back to Fatima. This word kind of brings forward the fact that she already had the land and that it was taken from her, which is why he was saying if you give it back, which means she was already in possession of it. Nonetheless, in this book in volume 3, page 487 and 488, Umar was angry at Abu Bakr, and he said to him that if you give Fadak back to Fatima, where the expenses for the army and defense, where will all that come from? At the present time, all the Arabs are fighting against you. He then took the papers of Fadak from Fatima and tore them into shreds. So she actually had documents proving that this land was hers. Anyway, he took that document in this reference that I've quoted and he tore it to shreds. Now, when it comes to obviously land, you have to understand that there's two types of land. Ghanima and Fay, two different types of lands. Now, for example, if the Muslims went to war and if the Muslims attained or acquired a piece of land known as war booty, which was something won because of the riding of camels and horses, because of the fact that a battle took place, the laws of the jurisprudential laws of Islam about what you can do with that land is different to that land which no war has taken place, that land where no horses and no camels have ridden in order to gain that land. The jurisprudential laws about what you can do with that type of land is different. So we'll explain the two differences of land and we'll explain what Fadak was as well, okay? So we read again within Ahl Sunnah tafsir of the Quran, okay? So we read in Tafsir Kabir, volume 8, page 125. In this, under the commentary of Surah Al-Hajr, we read that they say that Ghanima is that property in which you had worked to get it. So that's the first one that I mentioned. And you rode horses over it in order to get it. While Fay is that property in which you did not make any efforts to attain. This is obviously a reference to the Quran that has been mentioned, the two types of land. So Ghanima is that land which you worked for, you went to war for, or you rode your camels and horses in order to attain. And Fay, F-A-Y, is that land which you didn't fight for, you made no effort to attain. It was something that was given to you or gifted to you by any other means. These are the two types of lands, and each one has a different jurisprudential law about it. Fadak was Fay property. Fadak, the land, it was a property of Fay, which basically means the Muslims didn't go to war for that property. No horses or camels were ridden for that property. So Fadak was a property that was gifted to the Prophet by the Jews. Basically, no war had taken place. Now, just going through the references that I got here. So the Quran has ruled on the status of Fadak as being the property of Fay. What Allah has bestowed on His Messenger and taken away from them. For this ye made no expedition with either cavalry or camelry, like Fadak. But Allah gives power to His messengers over any He pleases. And Allah has power over all things. This is the Quran, Surah 59, ayah number 6, okay? This is what the verse says. It talks about a land that you didn't fight for, a land that you never rode your camels or your cavalry for. It's a land that we, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, had gifted to the Prophet. Now what the Prophet does with that land, obviously the law is different as opposed to that land which is attained whilst going to war. Now, Looking at the commentary of chapter or Surah 59 and Ayah 6, we're going to use again Tafsir Kabir, volume 10, page 506. We're going to use Tafsir Mazari, page 238. We are going to use Tafsir Ruh al-Ma'ani, and we're going to use the Tafsir of Surah Hajr. We're also going to use Tafsir Dur Mansur on the Tafsir of Surah Hajr, and we're also going to basically combine all these together and give my references. So we're going to start off with Tafsir Kabir. So Imam Fakhruddin al-Radi writes within Tafsir al-Kabir. He says in volume 10, page 506 of this book, that this verse that I've just mentioned, this verse about, we had given this land to the Prophet, you didn't fight for it, you didn't attain for it, no camels, no horses were ridden. This verse was revealed with regards to the land of Fadak, which the Prophet acquired as it was conquered without any fighting. Okay, so from the very onset, using Imam Fakhruddin al-Radi's Tafsir al-Kabir on Tafsir of Surah Hajr, of this verse that I'm mentioning, in volume 10, page 506, he says that this verse was revealed with regards to Fadak, which the Prophet acquired as it was conquered without any fighting. Now, question arises, so how did the Prophet attain Fadak? In order to shed light on this fact, what references are we going to use from Ahl Sunnah and Shia books? We're going to use Fathul Buldan, we're going to use page 46 of that. We are going to use Majma al-Baldan, page 139 of volume 14. We're going to use the history of Tabri, Tarikh Tabri, volume 3, page 1583. We're going to use Tarikh Khamis, volume 2, page 58. So all these references are what I'm going to use in order to prove how the Prophet attained the land of Fadak. All these books that I've mentioned, all these page numbers, all these volume numbers, and all these references all attain to the fact that when the Prophet returned from Khaybar, he sent Ibn Mas'ud to propagate Islam to the people of Khaybar. The leader of the Jews of Khaybar at that time was Josha bin Nun. The people of Fadak refused to accept Islam. Fair enough. So what happened? That person who refused to accept Islam, or the leader refused on behalf of his people, he offered to give them the land of Fadak as, let's just say, a negotiation tactic, as a gift, because they're not going to accept Islam and they were going to remain Jews. So when he gifted this land to the Prophet, this land was given to the Prophet as a gift, and the Muslims didn't ride horses for it, earlier mentioned, which is why this comes under the category of Male Fay and does not come under the category of Male Ghanima. Okay? Now, so we've understood now, Fadak was given to the Prophet from the Jews. Fadak was a property that was gifted to the Prophet when no Muslims fought for it. So it comes under Male Fay. Male Fay's laws are that the Prophet has a right to do whatever he wants with it. Male Ghanima, on the other hand, is basically a piece of land that is acquired via fighting. You made an effort to attain it. In that effort, you have a right on that land. So for example, let's say the Prophet went to war and attained Fadak. It's not up to the Prophet solely what he does with that land. Everybody that participated in that war has a share on that land, which means it has to be equally distributed among all those people. However, because this is Male Fay, because the Muslims didn't fight for this land, because this land was gifted to the Prophet from the Jews of Khaybar, because this land was the Prophet's property, he can do whatever he wants with it. Which means he doesn't have to give it to the Muslims. If he wants to, he can. But he doesn't have to, number one, give it to the Muslims. Number two, no Muslim has a right over this land. It's the Prophet's land. He can do whatever he wants with it. So then the question arises, what did the Prophet do with this land? Okay. For that, we're going to use the Quran. Okay. So we're going to go on to Surah 17 of the Holy Quran, and we're going to look at ayah number 26. In that verse, it clearly states that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to Jibreel to go to the Prophet and say, and the words of the Quran are, and render to the kindred their due rights. So now, render to the kindred their due rights. What does this verse mean? What did the Prophet do when this verse was revealed? Was it about Fadak? If it was, what did the Prophet do with the land of Fadak when this verse was revealed? Because Allah is giving a command to His Messenger. And render to the kindred, or to your kindred, their due right. Which in layman terms means give your family their right. What is the right of the family? What did the Prophet give? In order to obviously have a look at that, we're going to look at basically certain verses of the Quran. We're going to look at certain tafsirs of Ahl Sunnah books. We're going to look at historical books and hadith books to see what did the Prophet do with this land. So I've already mentioned it's Male Fay. The Prophet can do whatever he wants with it. And Allah says in the Quran, Surah 17 verse 26, and render to the kindred their due right. What books am I going to use? Again, we're going to use Tafsir Dur Mansur, volume 4, page 177. We're going to use Kanzul Ahmal or Kanzul Uhmal. We're going to use volume 2, page 158. and we are going to use Al-Tanzil, Volume 1, page 570. So these three books we're going to use. We're going to start off with, in the tafsir of this above verse that was revealed and rendered to the kindred they do right. What is the tafsir on that in terms of Ahl Sunnah esteemed work? So Abu Sa'id al-Khudri and Abdullah ibn Abbas both narrate that when this verse of the Quran was revealed and rendered to the kindred they do right, the Prophet called his daughter Fatima to Zahra salamullahi alayha. He called her. And he gifted the land of Fadak to his daughter. So we can see, Malefe, Muslims don't have a right over this land. The Prophet owns this land. He can do whatever he wants with this land. The Quran told him, and render to the kindred their due right. And in his lifetime, inheritance is something that we don't even have to touch upon. It's something we're going to look at afterwards because of certain claims that people made. But from the very onset, we can see that when this verse of the Quran was revealed and rendered to the kindred their due right, what did the Prophet do? He gave the land of Fadak to his daughter as a gift. Okay, now we read in Tafsir Dur al-Mansur, volume 4, page 177, is what I've just quoted, that Ibn Abbas and obviously Abu Sa'id al-Khudri say that when this verse was revealed, the Prophet gave the land of Fadak to Fatima in his lifetime. We read also in Riyadh al-Nadara, volume 4, page 231, that when the Prophet died, so now obviously we're going to see what happened after the Prophet died. So up till the death of the Prophet is very clear. All right, I don't need to reiterate everything again, but basically the land was Malefe. It was gifted to the Prophet. Muslims have no percentage or right over it. And in his lifetime, the Prophet gave this land to his daughter. So we read in obviously Riyadh al-Nadara, we read in volume 4, page 231, that when the Prophet died, Abu Bakr took the land of Fadak from Fatima. Fatima went to Abu Bakr and said to Abu Bakr, give the land of Fadak to me as my father, the Prophet ﷺ, gave it to me. So she's made a clear claim here. Give me my land because my father, the Prophet, had already given it to me. We read also in Tafsir Kabir, volume 8, page 125, which says that when Rasulullah died, Fatima claimed that Fadak was land bestowed to her by her father, the Prophet, and Abu Bakr said to Fatima, in this reference, I don't know if you are telling the truth. I understand that there are certain people out there that respect Abu Bakr at the utmost respect. There are those who look at him as one of the best companions of the Prophet. They look at him as the one who accompanied the Prophet in the cave. They look at him as the first Caliph of Islam. They look at him as one of the first Muslims. But this same man, who you revere and respect so much, narrated here in Tafsir Kabir, volume 8, page 125, underneath the ayat of Fay, that when Rasulullah died, Fatima claimed that Fadak was land bestowed to her. So she said, this is land bestowed to me by my father. And Abu Bakr replied back to the daughter of the Prophet, Siddiqatul Kubra, I don't know if you are telling the truth. And then you ask us, why do you Shias have certain perspectives and views on Abu Bakr? I say to you, at the end of the day, if this man is saying to the Prophet's daughter, I don't know if you're telling the truth, what basis did he have that she was lying? Has she ever lied before? Has he got any evidences that she has lied in the past? So on what basis did he say that, I don't know if you're telling the truth? Think about that firstly. Let's go to one of the more authentic Sunni books. So we read in Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 4, book 53, hadith number 325, narrated by who? By Aisha. What does she say? She said that after the death of Allah's apostle, Fatima, the daughter of Allah's apostle, asked Abu Bakr to give her share of inheritance. Now before I get onto this, let me just finish this hadith and I'll explain. Give her share of inheritance from what Allah's apostle had left on the fay, i.e. booty gained without fighting, which Allah had given him. Abu Bakr said to her that the Prophet said, our property, meaning us prophets, our property will not be inherited. Whatever we leave is left as charity, as in we leave it as charity. Fatima, the daughter of Allah's apostle, got angry at Abu Bakr and stopped speaking with him and continued assuming this attitude until she died. Fatima remained alive for 6 months after the death of the Prophet. Before we get to this inheritance issue, let me just finish off by concluding. So this land was taken from her. She came to Abu Bakr. She said to him, give me back this land, or give me this land. This land is my property. It was given to me by my father in his lifetime. You've usurped this land. You have no right over this land. Therefore, give it to me. He then said, produce witnesses. We're going to go over all this as well because I've got all the references here as well. But he said, produce witnesses. So she produced witnesses. He denounced those witnesses, denied it. So that's when she said to him, if you're not going to give me this land as my right, then I'm going to claim it under the laws of inheritance. This is how Fadak and inheritance join together. She started off firstly by saying, this is my land, give it back to me, as we mentioned when we opened this video. Or this is my land, give it to me. My father gave it to me in his lifetime, give it to me. He replied back by saying, no, I'm not going to give it to you because I've heard of this narration that the Prophet said, we prophets do not leave inheritance, whatever we leave is for the ummah. Therefore, Fadak is for the ummah and I'm going to distribute it among the ummah. But the arguments fall into place that number one, it was mal-e-fay, therefore it's not the ummah's. Number two, do prophets leave inheritance? I don't know, maybe they do. We can cover that in a moment. But nonetheless, this is how it comes on to inheritance. So what I'm trying to say here is the land of Fadak was in the possession of Fatima during her lifetime, during her father's lifetime as well. He died, as in the father. This person called Abu Bakr, who became the first Caliph of Islam, took that piece of land from her and she says, give it back to me, and he says no. So we're going to go through, for example, here we have a Sira al-Halabiyah. Okay, so in the book Sira al-Halabiyah, volume 3, page 487 and 488. We read here that Ibn Jawzi narrates that after Fatima made her claim to the ownership of the land of Fadak, Abu Bakr heard her claim, and Abu Bakr left a written instruction that this land is to be restored back to Fatima. So from here we can see the fact that he's writing a claim that this land is to be restored back to Fatima is evidence enough that he realized that it is her land. He realized that he did make a mistake by telling her that you can't have this land. But what happened with that piece of paper? After he wrote this written instruction, Umar then came to Abu Bakr and asked him, who is this document for? Abu Bakr replied, it is for Fatima with regards to Fadak, in relation to her father's inheritance. Umar said, then how will you spend for the Muslims when the Arabs are preparing to fight you? Umar then took the document and tore it up. We'll cover this in a bit later on as to the actions of Umar in this situation. But we can see that Abu Bakr later on did realize that he was wrong and he did write this written document. I'm going to quote from the Sunni commentary of Nahj al-Balagha by Ibn Abil Hadid, page 83, which is a letter that Imam Ali wrote to Abu Uthman ibn Hunayf. In that letter, Imam Ali says that, of course, all that we had in our possession under this sky was Fadak. But a group of people felt greedy for it, and the other party withheld themselves from it. Allah is, after all, the best arbiter. So the commentary of Nahj al-Balagha here on this page, it says that Abu Bakr sought witnesses that were produced and their testimonies were refused. So as I was mentioning earlier, so don't think of inheritance for a second because that comes a bit later on. So before we come to the inheritance part of it, we've come to the point here now where we know what Fadak is, we know the history, we know the landscape, we know how the Prophet acquired it, we know what the Prophet did with it, and we know that it was in Fatima's possession. Then we know the Prophet passes away. Now we know that this land is taken by the government. Okay, we're at that point now. So when this land was taken from Fatima to Zahra, she came to the government and she presented a case and she said, this land is mine, therefore give it back to me. What happened when she said that? So the moment Fatima to Zahra said, this land is mine, give it back to me, Abu Bakr says, okay, do you have any witnesses that can prove that this land is yours? Now, using even the English legal system, let alone Islamic jurisprudential law, we see that possession dictates ownership. So the onus was on Abu Bakr to produce witnesses, because at the end of the day, if I'm holding this piece of paper in my hand and I say to you that I own this piece of paper and you say no I don't, the onus is on you to come forward with any proof that you may or may not have and prove that this is not mine. I don't have to prove it because I'm already saying possession dictates ownership. So when Fatima to Zahra is saying to Abu Bakr that this land is mine, and Abu Bakr is saying if it's truly yours then produce witnesses, it should have been Abu Bakr's right or Abu Bakr's move at that point to produce witnesses to counter her statement. Not Fatima's coming forward and bringing witnesses, again because possession dictates ownership. Even though that case is still there, she still produced witnesses, okay? Moment he said bring witnesses, what did she do? So we read here in Al-Wa'il by Askari, we read on page number 258 that upon the claim of Fatima saying that Fadak is my land, Abu Bakr then said, bring forward any witnesses that you may have. So Fatima brought forward her husband Ali ibn Abi Talib, and she brought forward Ayman. They both testified before Abu Bakr that Allah's apostile granted Fadak to Fatima. We also read in Simt al-Najum, volume 2, page 391, that Fatima went to Abu Bakr and said, Allah's apostile has granted me Fadak. So Abu Bakr said to her, O daughter of the Prophet of Allah, do you have any proof? Fatima then brought Ali and Ayman forward, and they both testified in her favor. So we can see from this very onset that she did produce witnesses. She produced her husband Ali, she produced Ayman, both testified in her favor, and both said that this land was given to Fatima from the Prophet. However, Abu Bakr still rejected those witnesses. He still put that down. Some narrations said that he said, look, Ali is your husband, therefore I'm not going to accept him. Ayman is one woman, two women equal the witness of one man. Therefore, because you've only got one woman, where's the other woman? So he worked his way around by concluding with that, I am not going to accept your witnesses. And he's basically denounced the testimonies of the witnesses and says, do you have any other proof? So when she then obviously brought us children, Hassan and Hussein, forward, he says, we're not going to accept the testimony of children. We're not going to test the testimony of your husband. And two witnesses, as in two women, equals a witness of one man. And because you've only produced one woman, do you have any other women or any other men that can attest to this? If you don't, then I'm going to denounce your claim. So now we come to the fact that Fadak was hers. She claimed it. She was rejected. Now, when Abu Bakr said to her that I'm not going to give you this land as your right, because according to my judgment, you have not brought forward enough sufficient evidence. We counter back by saying, what happened at Mubahala when the Prophet was having a debate with the Christians on a matter pertaining the birth of Jesus? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needed certain individuals to step forward and represent him. Fatima was the only woman in the whole of Medina that was taken at the incident of Mubahala to represent Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the truthful woman, to curse the liars. They had a Mubahala. They had the Muslims and the Christians came together because they were having a debate about Jesus, and the debate wasn't concluding, so they started arguing amongst each other, to which the Prophet then was told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran in chapter 3, which is known as Surah Al-Imran, verse number 61. وَنِسَاءَنَا وَنِسَاءَكُمْ وَأَنفُسَنَا وَأَنفُسَكُمْ ثُمَّ نَبْتَهِلْ فَنَجْعَلْ لَعْنَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَاذِبِينَ. That I want you to bring your men, women and children, tell them to bring their men, women and children, and both of you parties ask Allah to curse whoever's lying. The only reason Fatima Zahra was taken to Mubahala was because of the whole of Medina, she was the only woman that never lied before in her life. So when this woman is coming up to you and claiming that this land is mine, think about it. She represented Allah in Mubahala, and now you're telling her to bring proof? Nonetheless, when this claim was rejected, then she said to him, okay, fine. If you're not going to give me Fadak as my right from my father, then I'm going to claim this land as or under the act of the laws of inheritance. So at least give me this land as a right that I have from my father being his daughter. In order to understand that this inheritance law, we first have to go to the Quran. We need to look at the Quran and see what does the Quran say about inheritance. So we look at Surah Nisa, chapter 4 of the Quran, verse number 7. This verse says that from what is left by parents and those nearest related, there is a share for men and there is a share for women, whether the property be small or large or of a detriment share. So the verse, chapter 4, verse 7 of the Quran here, is saying that a man and a woman has a right to inherit from their parents and from their family members. So we can see that a woman in Islam can inherit from her father. I just had to mention that firstly, just in case somebody comes forward and says, oh, a woman can't inherit. No, of course they can. They can inherit in the English legal system, and they can inherit within the Islamic legal system as well. So now, coming back to what I quoted earlier from Bukhari. So when Fatima said to Abu Bakr, look, if you're not going to give me this land as my right, then give it to me under the laws of inheritance. And Abu Bakr replied back by saying what? He said, I've heard the Prophet say that we prophets do not leave inheritance. Whatever we leave is for the ummah. We don't leave dirham or dinar. That's the claim. Firstly, why is Abu Bakr the only narrator of this hadith? Why is it that no one else has ever narrated this, firstly? And secondly, what happened when he said that? So the moment he said to the daughter of the Prophet, I'm not going to give you this land as your right because you don't have sufficient witnesses or evidence, and I'm not going to give it to you under the laws of inheritance because your father, the Prophet, said that we prophets don't leave inheritance. Whatever we leave, it's charity. It's for the whole of the nation of Islam or for the ummah. We don't leave inheritance. How did Fatima reply back? Now, there's a law in Islam that if the Quran says one thing and the Hadith says something else, and these two statements contradict each other, as a Muslim, you're supposed to take what the Quran says and denounce the Hadith. That's basic common sense. So for example, if the Quran is saying you cannot drink and the hadith is saying you can drink, in that situation you take the Quran and you do not take the hadith because they contradict each other. Just like that, we have a hadith here from Abu Bakr in which the Prophet is saying we prophets do not leave inheritance. Yeah. Now let's see what the Quran says. So the moment she was told that she cannot get it under the laws of inheritance because Abu Bakr apparently heard the Prophet say that we prophets do not leave inheritance, what did she reply back with? She replied back by quoting the Quran in chapter 27 verse 16. And Solomon was David's hire or heir. So basically what he means there is in chapter 27 verse 16, وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانَ دَاوُدَ, and Solomon inherited from David. Solomon is a prophet, David is a prophet. A prophet has just inherited from a prophet. The Quran here, chapter 27, verse 16. And Solomon inherited from David. وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانَ دَاوُدَ. Solomon has just inherited from David. So hold on. A hadith is saying there is no inheritance. The Quran is saying that a prophet has inherited from a prophet. So what do you do in that situation? You throw the hadith away and you take the Quran. Simple. So that's the first proof that she brought forward. Now, an argument that some people come forward with is they say, yeah, basically, وَوَرِثَ Sulaiman and Dawood basically means that Solomon inherited Nabuwa from his father, or that Solomon inherited wisdom, or that he inherited knowledge. It wasn't materialistic inheritance. Okay. We read in Tafsir Kashaf, volume 3, page 140. It says that waris in this verse refers to the kingdom. What's the kingdom? The kingdom is a materialistic wealth. It's a materialistic property. Everything that is contained within the kingdom is what the father has inherited from the son. So that argument just goes straight out the window. We also read in Tafsir Al-Kashaf, volume 3, page 140. That's obviously what I just quoted. And we also read in Tafsir Khazan, which says that Allah's statement, وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانَ دَاوُدَ, means that the father and the son's inheritance that was passed down from father to son was his kingdom. We also read in Tafsir Dur Mansur that Solomon inherited the kingdom from his father. So the argument that this verse in the Quran basically means that a father gave his son knowledge or he inherited Nabuwa from his father is false. Because these three Sunni references say that the kingdom is what was inherited. Even more than that, Tafsir Dur al-Mansur, volume 5, page 193, it says that Nisaburi or Alama Nisaburi records that in his Tafsir Gharaib al-Quran, that Allah's statement, وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانَ دَاوُدَ, it is that materialistic possessions was inherited from father to son because prophethood is not, or prophethood is a gift. Prophethood cannot be inherited, it's a gift in this tafsir. By Alama Nisaburi records in his tafsir Gharaib al-Quran that when Allah says وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانَ دَاوُدَ, he is meaning that it is materialistic possessions that are inherited because prophethood is a gift. So prophethood can't even be inherited anyway. Abu Bakr is saying that the Prophet said that we don't leave inheritance. The Quran is saying, وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانَ دَاوُدَ, and Solomon inherited from David, and they were both prophets. So what does that mean? That means firstly, you take Abu Bakr's words away, and you take the words of God. You accept that? Okay. Then the next argument is, yeah, but the inheritance that was sent from father to son was Nabuwa, or was knowledge, or was wisdom. No, not really. Nabuwa cannot be inherited, it's a gift. Knowledge, wisdom, these things don't get inherited. You either get taught, or Allah bestows it upon you. So what else is left in this situation for a father and a son to inherit? All these references say that it was the kingdom. وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانَ دَاوُدَ, and Solomon inherited from David was his father's kingdom. We also read in Tafsir Gharaib al-Quran again that it says that it has been narrated that in this verse وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانَ دَاوُدَ, it means that he inherited horses from his father. Now you tell me, is horse not a materialistic thing? Of course it is. So Abu Bakr is saying that prophets don't leave inheritance. The Quran is saying the prophets do leave inheritance. And then a tafsir of the verse in the Quran that is saying prophets leave inheritance is that it was horses that was inherited from father to son. We also read here in Tashil Li'ulum al-Tanzil, and we read by one of the authors in there that says that the majority that Solomon brought via the inheritance from his father was horses. Again, horses have been mentioned. We read in Tafsir al-Nasafi that it has been said that inherited from his father had been obtained was what? It was obtained that it was horses as a war booty. We also read in Zad al-Masir by Imam of the Salafis, what's his name? His name is Abu al-Faraj al-Jawzi, who says that he inherited from his father horses. Imam Qurtubi in Tafsir also says that Solomon inherited 1,000 horses from his father. We also read by Sheikh Kamaluddin Mohammed bin Musa Damiri, who records in his book Hayat al-Haywan that the majority of scholars are of the opinion that horses were inherited. So we can conclude that prophets do inherit. So Abu Bakr was wrong in saying that the prophets don't inherit, because the Quran is saying, or warasa Sulaiman and Dawood. And then the argument that nabuwah or knowledge or wisdom was inherited goes out the window, because all these Sunni tafsirs and Sunni books are talking that it was horses that were inherited, or it was the kingdom that was inherited. So this is the first proof that Fatima brought forward. The second proof that Fatima Zahra brought forward was, she said to him, "Oh Abu Bakr, if you still do not believe that prophets leave inheritance after this verse of the Quran, I quote you another verse. In Surah Maryam, chapter 19 of the Quran, verse 30, we read that Nabi in the Quran says, I am indeed a servant of Allah. He hath given me revelation and He has made me a prophet." The counter argument here is, earlier when I was talking about certain people come forward with the opinion that it was prophethood that was inherited, but all the Sunni tafsirs here say that prophethood is a gift, it cannot be inherited. This what I've just quoted here in Surah Maryam chapter 19 verse 30, Jesus, Hazrat Isa alayhi salam is saying, I am indeed a servant of Allah and He has given me revelation and made me a prophet. So Allah made him a prophet. So where did Jesus inherit his prophethood from? If prophethood is inherited, Jesus was born and at 3 days old, he says, I am a prophet of Allah. And he also says, Allah has made me a prophet. So the fact that Allah made him a prophet shows that Allah decides who a prophet is. Prophethood is a gift given upon mankind to certain individuals who Allah chooses them to be prophets. So it cannot be inherited. Now we also go to, for example, the Quran again in chapter 30 here, also speaks about Jesus, and in chapter 19 verse 30 and says that Allah made me a prophet. But we also see that Sulaiman was a prophet at the same time as his father Dawood was a prophet. Because we read in Surah Al-Anbiya chapter 21 verse 79, chapter 21 verse 79, to Solomon we inspired the right understanding of the matter. To each of them, meaning father and son, we gave them judgment and we gave them knowledge. Allah says we gave them judgment and we gave them knowledge. So Allah gave them prophethood, Allah gave them knowledge, Allah made them prophets. So that just completely destroys the argument that knowledge is inherited, prophethood is inherited, or wisdom is inherited. Because Allah is saying, we have given them knowledge, we have given them wisdom, we have given them judgment, and we have chosen to make them prophets. Plus, Sulaiman and Dawood were both prophets at the same time. So how is it, according to certain people who come forward of the opinion that in this verse of Warisa Sulaiman and Dawood, that it was prophethood that was being inherited, they were both prophets at the same time. Wouldn't inheritance come in place when the father dies, then the son inherits from his father? Here, both of them are prophets at the same time. So again, negating the argument that it was not prophethood that was inherited, it was knowledge, it wasn't wisdom. What was it? Materialistic wealth, it was a kingdom, and it was horses. Okay? So that's fine now. So all this is done, as in obviously from that verse that Fatima Zahra brought forward, and we've countered the argument to certain people if they come forward and say that this verse is not talking about materialistic wealth. Of course it is. It's talking about horses. It's talking about kingdoms, materialistic wealth. After she presented all this argument, Fatima Zahra then presented another argument. She presented an argument where Nabi Zakaria talks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, and he says, "Oh Allah, I fear my cousins after me. Therefore, grant me a son who will inherit me and who will inherit from the sons of Yaqub." Yahya was his son, prophet. Yaqub, prophet. Zakaria, prophet. Children of Yaqub, Yusuf, prophet. All of these prophets are inheriting from each other. And you're saying that the argument of Fadak is that Abu Bakr said that the prophet said that we don't leave inheritance. Yet the Quran is saying that Solomon, prophet. Dawood, prophet, inherited from each other. Zakaria, prophet, his son who will inherit from him, Yahya, prophet. Yaqub, prophet, his son Yusuf who will inherit from him, prophet. 6 prophets are being mentioned here who have inherited materialistic wealth from each other. So obviously that argument is there that prophets do inherit from each other. The Quran is attested to this, and Fatima Zahra brought this argument forward to Abu Bakr when she was talking about inheritance. We can also see that there's a statement obviously within this Quran where the Nabi Zakaria said to Allah, who shall inherit me, and who shall, or Allah grant me a son who will inherit me and who will inherit the children of Yaqub. This is to say that inheritance in this situation means materialistic possessions, because after my death and my inherited prophethood from the children of Yaqub is that Zakaria is Yaqub's descendant, and this is the opinion of the commentators of the Quran that has been quoted in this Tariq al-Tabari that I've just quoted to you. And also we read that in Tafsir al-Thawri it says that inherit, as in Zakaria said, inherit my materialistic possessions and my materialistic property from the children of Yaqub. We also read in Tafsir Dur al-Manthur by Al-Faryabi, narrated from Ibn Abbas, that he says Zakaria wasn't able to have a child. Therefore he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him a child and said, "Oh Allah, give me a child who shall inherit me and who shall inherit the children of Yaqub." Inherit meaning in this situation materialistic possessions from me and from the children of Yaqub. We read again, this is obviously Dur al-Mansur, volume 2, page 467. And we also read by Ibn Adil, who states in his book, which is Ulum al-Kitab, which says there are various opinions about the meaning of inheritance. Ibn Abbas, Hassan and Dahak said that in this verse, the meaning of inheritance means materialistic possession. We also read by Ahmad bin Mustafa al-Muraghi, who obviously records in his Tafsir al-Muraghi that a son who shall inherit the kingdom of Bani Mathan from me. That's basically what Zakaria was saying. So let me just sum all this up. Abu Bakr is saying to the daughter of the Prophet, I cannot give you this land under the laws of inheritance because I have heard the Prophet say we prophets do not leave inheritance. She says, okay. The Quran says that Solomon inherited from Dawood. The Quran says that Nabi Zakaria asked Allah for a son who shall inherit him and who shall also inherit from the children of Yaqub. So the argument here is the hadith is saying that prophets don't leave inheritance. The Quran is saying they do. So that argument goes out the window. Next argument. Oh, it wasn't materialistic wealth that was inherited. It was just prophethood or knowledge or wisdom. No. Because in all these Sunni tafsirs, it has been mentioned that you cannot inherit knowledge or wisdom or prophethood. All these three things from the verses of the Quran I quoted in Surah Maryam are bestowed upon people by God Himself. These are not things that are inherited. So Solomon inherited from Dawood. What did he inherit? Not prophethood, because they were both prophets at the same time. So what did they inherit? Kingdom, materialistic possessions, and up to a certain Sunni tafsirs, horses. Yaqub, Zakaria, Yahya, Yusuf, all these prophets are leaving inheritance for each other. And all these Tariq Tabri, Tafsir Dur al-Mansur, all these are saying that it was materialistic possessions that Zakaria wanted his son Yahya to inherit from him. So the argument completely is destroyed there. What are the prophets have left inheritance? So for example, the inheritance left by Nabi Adam. We see in Surah Baqarah chapter 2 verse 248, it says, and further their prophet said to them, a sign of his authority is that there shall come to you the ark of the covenant with an assurance therein of security from your Lord, and the relics left by the family of Moses and the family of Harun carried by angels. In this is a symbol for you if ye indeed have faith. So chapter 2 verse 248. These relics reached the hands of Adam and his descendants, and as proof we shall rely on the following Sunni esteemed works. Tafsir Kabir volume 2 page 506 and 507. Tafsir al-Khazan volume 1 page 216. These tafsirs all mention what? So let's see what they mention. Tafsir Kabir volume 2 page 506, 507. What does it say? The historians narrate that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent some relics to Adam which contained pictures of prophets, and these relics were inherited by the children of Adam to the point that they reached the prophet Yaqub alayhi salam. So Tafsir Kabir is saying that Yaqub was inherited from Adam. Not only is Zakaria, Solomon, Dawood, Yahya, Yaqub, Yusuf, all these inheriting, but Adam is leaving inheritance here. Was he not a prophet? Yaqub is receiving inheritance here. Was he not a prophet? Ibrahim's shirt was inherited by Prophet Ishaq until it reached Prophet Yaqub. For this we look at the Quran in chapter 12 verse 93, where Yusuf said, take this shirt and cast it on my father's face, and he will gain, or he will regain his eyesight and will be able to see and come to me with all your families. So Argument completely destroyed. Prophets do leave inheritance. Abu Bakr was lying. He's got no proof. The Quran is basically countering him. And those people who come forward by saying that it was not materialistic wealth that was inherited, all these references say that it was materialistic wealth. So here we can see that prophets do leave inheritance. And they do receive inheritance. So what was the sermon of Fatima Zahra Fadak? So we read in Sharh of Nahj al-Balagha by Ibn Abil Hadid, volume 4, page 108. When Fatima, I'm just going to read her sermon here. So when Fatima Zahra Salamullah alayha discovered that Abu Bakr intended on confiscating Fadak, she wrapped a cloth around her head, gathered some women from her tribe and went to Abu Bakr. At that time the Muhajirin and Ansar was summoned. A parda or a veil was placed between the men and the women. The daughter of the Holy Prophet of Islam said in a distressed manner that led the Sahaba into crying. And after a short pause she praised Allah, sent a salam on her father and said the following: all things on this earth and sky seeks a wasila to Allah. The wasila for the people to reach Allah are us, the Ahlul Bayt. And Allah selected us from amongst the creation. She then introduced herself. She says, who am I? I am Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet of Islam. And said, this which was bestowed to me has been taken. O Abu Bakr, if you are the inheritor of your father, and I am not my father's inheritor, you have adopted a wrong means. Then she said to the Muhajirun and Ansar, requesting help, O Bani, and obviously all the tribes that were present there, the inheritance of my father has been annexed from me before your very eyes. You are listening to my words. Yet why are you lacking with regards to helping me? Why do you not support my right? That was basically what she was saying. We read in Sahih Bukhari, volume 4, book 53, hadith number 325, narrated by Aisha, that after the death of Allah's apostle, Fatima, the daughter of Allah's apostle, asked Abu Bakr to give her share of inheritance from the land that the Prophet had left, i.e. booty gained without fighting, which Allah had given to the Prophet. Abu Bakr said to the daughter of the Prophet that the Prophet said, we prophets do not leave inheritance. Whatever we leave is sadaqah, it's charity. Fatima, the daughter of Allah's apostle, got angry and stopped speaking to Abu Bakr and continued assuming this attitude until she died. Fatima remained alive for 6 months after the death of Allah's apostle. So here she's claiming this. He's countering it by saying prophets don't leave inheritance. She's refuted it by giving him several verses of the Quran where prophets have left inheritance. And he still denied her. And then she said, I'm leaving this court angry at you. And she did not speak to him until she died. We read in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal that Aisha narrates that once Fatima sent her servant to Abu Bakr to state her claim on the land from the Holy Prophet, mainly Fadak, and Abu Bakr said that the Prophet said that we prophets do not leave inheritance, so whatever we leave is charity. Now saying this, it is clear that Abu Bakr gave Fatima nothing, and as a result of this, Fatima Zahra got hurt. And Abu Bakr said, I swear by the one who holds my life, I love to show compassion towards the relatives of the Prophet more than to my own relatives. But with regards to the difference of opinion that we have in relation to this possession, I cannot divert from the truth. I shall not divert from that which I saw the Prophet doing. We read in Kanzul Ahmal, Fatima became upset with Abu Bakr and continued assuming that attitude until she died. Now just before I finish off with these narrations, the Prophet mentions a hadith in Bukhari. He says, Fatima bad'atu minni, man ardaha faqad ardani. Fatima is a part of me. Whoever pleases her has pleased me. And whoever angers my daughter has angered me. And whoever angers me has angered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if somebody is angering Allah, it's no Muslim needs to think what is going to happen to that individual that angers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So with that hadith in mind, we read in Kanzul Ahmal that Sayyidah Fatima became angry at Abu Bakr and continued assuming that attitude until she died. We read in Sunan al-Kabir that Fatima became angry at Abu Bakr and never spoke to Abu Bakr until she died. We read in Wafa al-Wafa, Abu Bakr denied Fatima her right and she became angry at him, never speaking to Abu Bakr again until she died. We read by Ibn Qutayba in his Al-Imama wa Siyasa, page 13, that records that Umar said to Abu Bakr, we have angered Fatima. So they accept that they've angered her. Alright, so from there we can see that they've angered the Prophet and they've angered Allah. What did they do about it? Abu Bakr said to Umar that we have angered Fatima, let us go to her and seek her forgiveness. So they both came to the house of Fatima and asked permission to enter. Fatima did not grant them permission to enter. Then they went to Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam and spoke to him. Imam Ali allowed them to enter the house. Abu Bakr and Umar then sat in front of Fatima Zahra and she turned her face away from them. They sent their salams to her and she did not even reply to their salams. So what does that mean? Fatima didn't even reply back to their salams, which means she was still angry at them. Sayyidah Fatima left a will that Abu Bakr be prevented from attending her funeral, which clearly goes to show that even at the time of her death, she was still angered by Abu Bakr. We read in Sharh ibn Abil Hadid, volume 4, page 136, on the chapter which is known as Khutbah Bayan Fadak, that Hazrat Fatima's anger was such that she left a will stipulating that Abu Bakr not attend her funeral prayers. We read in Al-Istiab, volume 2, page 114, that when Fatima died, Aisha arrived with the intention of coming in, but Asma bint Umays said to her, "Do not enter." So Aisha went to Abu Bakr and complained and said that this woman has prevented me from entering the Prophet's daughter's house. Abu Bakr then went to Asma bint Umays and says, "Why do you prevent the wife of Rasulullah from entering Fatima's house?" Asma bint Umays replied that Fatima had issued a directive command preventing Aisha from attending her funeral. So not only was Fatima angered at Abu Bakr, not only was she angered at Umar, she was also angered at Aisha. Because here in Al-Istiyab volume 2 page 114, it is narrated that Asma bint Umays did not let Aisha enter the house. And when Abu Bakr inquired, she replied back by saying, "Fatima had given me a directive command preventing Aisha from entering my funeral." Now, let's go back to something that the Prophet said once. The Prophet said that you cannot be angry at a Muslim for more than 3 days. Okay? You cannot be angry at a Muslim more than 3 days. We read in Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 4, book 53, hadith number 325, that Fatima, the daughter of Allah's apostle, got angry and stopped speaking to Abu Bakr and continued assuming this attitude until she died. Fatima remained alive for 6 months after the death of Allah's apostle. So what does that say? So to conclude, right, so just going to have a little sum up. The land was the Prophet's possession. He attained it without going to war. So the Muslims had no right over that land. The Quran told the Prophet to render to the kindred their due right. The Prophet gave that land of Fadak to his daughter during his lifetime. So she had it in her hand. She had the possession. The Prophet passes away. Abu Bakr then becomes the Khalifa of the Muslims and confiscates that land from Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet. Fatima then comes to Abu Bakr and says, "This is my land, give it to me." Abu Bakr says, "Give me witnesses, evidence, proof that this is your land." So she presents her husband Ali, she presents Asma bint Umays, she presents Ayman, she presents Hassan and Hussein, all rejected. She then says, "Okay, if you're not going to give me this land as my right, then at least give it to me under the laws of inheritance, that a daughter has a right to inherit from her father." To which Abu Bakr said, "No, I've heard the Prophet say that we prophets do not leave inheritance. Whatever we leave, it's charity." To which Fatima replied back by saying, "Well, what is Sulaiman and Dawood? Solomon inherited from David. They're both prophets. Zakaria asked Allah for a son, Yahya, to inherit him. They're both prophets. Zakaria asked Allah for a son who will not only inherit him, but inherit from the sons of Yaqub. Yaqub was a prophet. His son Yusuf was a prophet. Adam's relics, Musa's relics, Harun's relics were all inherited." So clearly the Quran is saying that prophets do leave inheritance, and Abu Bakr is saying that prophets don't leave inheritance. Who are you going to choose? Who are you going to choose? Allah or Abu Bakr? At the end of the day, who are you going to choose? The Quran or Hadith? We're obviously going to choose the Quran. So even though Fatima presented all these arguments, Abu Bakr still said to her that I'm not going to accept what you're saying because prophets don't leave inheritance. She says, "But the Quran is saying that prophets leave inheritance." No, I'm not going to accept it. All these Sunni tafseers are proving that it was materialistic wealth that was inherited by all these 7 to 8 prophets. However, he still rejected it. So then she left angry at Abu Bakr and she said, "I'm going to complain to my father on the day of judgment what you've done to me, and I'm going to tell him that you've hurt me." Then the hadith comes to mind. Fatima bad'atu minni. Fatima is a part of me. Man ardaha faqad ardani. Whoever pleases her has pleased me. Whoever angers my daughter Fatima, the Prophet is saying, angers me. Whoever angers me angers Allah. And then obviously Sahih al-Bukhari here is saying that Abu Bakr angered the daughter of the Prophet. So just put 2 and 2 together and solve this puzzle for yourself. Then she remained angry at him for the remainder of the 6 months that she lived after this incident, even to the extent that she wrote in her will, "Oh Ali, do not let Abu Bakr attend my funeral." That's why even till today we don't know where the daughter of the Prophet is buried. Even till today her gravesite is a hidden location because she got buried in the middle of the night. She got buried in secrecy. She got buried because she left this world angry at Abu Bakr and at Umar and at Aisha. She left this world angry. The daughter of the Prophet left this world angry at Abu Bakr, Umar. And the fact that we don't know where she's buried is enough proof today even that she's still angry at them. So the whole conclusion of Fadak is this, what I've presented before you. If anybody's got any questions about this, or if anybody wants to counter this video with a response, or if anybody wants to debate me on this issue, if anybody wants to put forward a response video, or just wants more clarification about Fadak, you're more than welcome to comment underneath this video. I'll be more than happy to reply back to you. I'll either reply back to you via text, or I can reply back to you via a video. And inshallah, that concludes Fadak. That Fatima was right. Her rights were taken, usurped. She presented witnesses and evidences, all rejected due to basically a person sitting on the governmental seat claiming that he knew what he was talking about when he didn't. Fatima left this world angry at Abu Bakr, and she remained angry with him until she died. And if anybody has any doubts about what I've said today, I challenge you to make a response video to this, and I challenge you to debate me on this issue, because we Shias of Ali ibn Abi Talib will completely destroy you. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.